Hello, I'm Illah Nourbakhsh, and first of all, I want to apologize for not being at the Hastings Center conference in person. Unfortunately, the International Trade Commission got in my way. And if I bolt into the room while this is playing, that's because I managed to get back just in time, and I'll be interrupting myself to talk live. But failing that, I want to talk a little bit about AI and bioethics and the influences that I believe AI has on society from a bioethics point of view. And I'm a big fan of the idea of keywords. I teach a class called AI and Humanity where we use the keywords from Colin McCabe's original text to think about the etymology of language and the way language gives us a semantics for gripping into and diving into an understanding of the way AI affects society. So I'm going to do three keywords today. I'm going to do dynamics, I'm going to do agency, and then identity. So let's start with dynamics. There's a general point we need to make about AI. Every time we have a conference where we think about the boundary work of how AI influences a part of society, whether it's privacy or corporate regulation or education with cognitive tutors, we face a fundamental challenge, which is that AI isn't a fixed thing. AI is not only an abstract terminology that we apply to many different strategies, but what's more, AI keeps improving in how well it works. So we face this fundamental problem that every time we have a conference and we talk about AI's impact on society in various ways, our conference is pretty much stale as it's finishing because AI has made another leap forward. And so the dynamics of AI, which we need to understand fundamentally, is twinned with these issues that it's never ending, always getting better. That is to say, the wavefront of what AI can do, the affordances it gives us as people, only expands. And at the same time, twinned with that, we have hyperbole. And the hyperbole of AI is always far outsized compared to what it can actually do. So we talk about AI driving a car autonomously when AI can't actually tell the difference between a human being and a bicycle in some circumstances. So it's incredibly, shall we say, stupid in some ways, and at the same time, an incredibly intelligent companion with decision-making capabilities. Now, this twin problem that AI has, the dynamics that give us both extreme hyperbole and never-ending increases in performance, that can lead you to some unusual spaces. And of course, one example of that is Watson. The promises that were made for the medical community, and even inside the medical community, if you read some of the literature that was published about Watson, was fundamentally about the idea that, and I'm nearly quoting here, doctors would say, well, it can read 500,000 articles a day. So of course I'm going to trust Dr. Watson because it knows more than I do about medicine. And of course there we have this conflagration of an anthropocentric sense of the word know, thinking that because it's reading an article it knows as much as a human does when a human reads the article, with the misunderstanding that that system is a classification system, it's a statistical system, it's drawing certain kinds of inferences that are highly mathematical and have pretty much nothing to do with the way a human physician uses that knowledge and their own inbuilt wisdom from years of practice to make a decision about a diagnosis. So, yet, when I say that, the problem that I've created for you is that that AI system that didn't perform well in the Mayo Clinic and other places in trials last year, and there was a long format article on this in IEEE Spectrum that's worth reading, that same system will perform much better next year, and even better the year after. And yet, equating it to human performance or conceptualizing it as a system that outperforms a human is rife with mistake. Because what AI does, the way it functions, and the ways in which it makes errors are so alien to the ways humans make errors that the comparison between human and AI always falls flat. It always captures not the reality of the ways in which it's a boundary technology that doesn't replace us, but rather complements us in certain unusual ways. And that's something we constantly fail to factor. So that's dynamics. And I want to put that out there because everything I say today, everything we say today about AI and ethics and bioethics is tempered by the fact that we only have a partial understanding of where AI will be in 3 or 4 years, and further tempered by the fact that we have basically no clue for how much AI will be doing in 10 years. And so, as a result, we have constant opacity. This constant cloud is in our vision system, and we can't see through it, and we can't tell where we're headed. So that's part one. Part two, agency. So one of the most important aspects of AI's influence on society, and even in the world of biology or bioethics, I think is to understand the question of the agency people will have in an age when AI can do more and more. And I want to give you some examples of that. And this is a policy and regulatory question, but it's also an underlying ethical design question. What's the design thinking that leads us to be able to maximize human agency in an age when AI can potentially corrupt our agency and challenge our agency? So let me start with a silly example. Hyperactive Bob, one of my favorite examples. Hyperactive Bob was a system that was put into place by a Carnegie Mellon graduate trying to make a buck. It was a deep machine learning system. And it has to do with McDonald's, and it has to do with how you cook food at McDonald's. So if you're approaching the drive-through line at McDonald's with your car, there's a big long line of cars, you're not going to get in line with them. You're going to go to Wendy's next door or Burger King next door. And no, none of them paid me to say this on camera. So what you're going to do at McDonald's is you want to minimize the length of that line. How do you do that? Well, one way you do that is you have the short order cook make French fries and Big Macs and something else they sell, quarter pounders. You have them make it on the hour or on the minute extra before anybody's ordered it. And you put it under the heat lamp so that when somebody orders it, it's instantly available to minimize the length of that line outside. But the problem with this is if nobody comes along and orders the French fries, then after a certain number of minutes have elapsed, you have to throw it away, which means you've incurred cost and food waste, which are both very bad things for the company. So what Hyperactive Bob did was really kind of fascinating. It's a camera system in the parking lot of McDonald's. The camera system looks at the cars pulling into the line, and it's connected to the order system, the actual database order system inside McDonald's. As the cars pull up and order food, the people in the cars, of course, are the ones who order the food, the learning system starts to learn which cars order what food. And over the course of several months of training, it became very skilled at actually guessing ahead of time what somebody's going to order before they get to the front of the queue and make the order. So yes, the learning system actually discovered, and this thing was called Hyperactive Bob, that big SUVs order Big Macs and supersized fries, and little Toyota Priuses order Filet-O-Fish sandwiches. In fact, they're the only cars that order Filet-O-Fish sandwiches. So by discovering this, what Hyperactive Bob then did is when people pull into line, it sent the short order cook an order before they ordered their meal. And as a result, in the testing they did, the amount of food waste went down, and the wait time went down, and the income profits went up at McDonald's. Now that's a crazy example. And it's an example where if you start to wonder about privacy and about surveillance and about loss of agency, people become flummoxed right away. Am I being surveilled? Well, my car was being surveilled. And it wasn't even my license plate, it was just the make and model of the car. Do I mind that a system is learning my behavior? Well, it's not learning my behavior, it's learning my car's behavior. So it's an example that's on this kind of boundary of what AI can do. It's something humans can't possibly do, but then it starts to challenge our sense of personal free will and agency just ever so little. Now, amp that up. And no, I'm not going to do Cambridge Analytica, I'm going to do Intel. Intel made a smart advertisement board. The advertisement board is a camera system that has an ad space, so it can show digital ads to you as you walk by on the street, but it also has a lens with which it can look at you. And you should know that in computer vision today, we can tell if somebody's pupils are dilating. We can even tell with an ordinary vision camera now how fast your heart's beating from the flush response in your skin. And we can tell what gestures you're making and what you're looking at, how you're saccading your eyes. So the board's conceptualization was, let's size people up, understand their demography, their socioeconomic status, and then show them ads. And do experiments where we show them ads and see how they respond to the ad psycho-emotionally. And by the way, the system's connected to the point of sale system inside the store, so that if they actually go inside Banana Republic and buy something, we can tell what they bought and whether that related to the ad we just showed them outside. Now, this system is doing the same thing that a marketing professional does when they stand there and observe an ad, look at people's behavior, and then make tweaks to that ad. Except that that marketing professional is doing that in analog, slow time, without customizing it particularly to a particular demography of each person rapidly. This system is simply turbocharging that process by dynamically and rapidly allowing millions of psychology experiments to be done on potential consumers, and then viewing their response, connecting it to point of sale, and essentially tweaking and tuning the best possible way to maximize the chance that somebody will buy the thing you want them to buy. Now, this is what marketing is all about. It's the holy grail of marketing. But what if you get really good at it? What if AI is so good at understanding the psycho the psychological decision-making process of a human, that the AI system can get you to buy nearly anything it wants you to buy by creating messaging just for you. That starts to make people uncomfortable. And that's the beginning of what happens when you take AI, psychology, and active marketing and combine those. And that becomes an ethical quandary. Now, if you want to cross the line, and this is where you get into a thing like Cambridge Analytica, take that exact same system and imagine applying it not to maximizing dopamine response for purchases, but to maximizing dopamine response to get you to vote for exactly one political party. What if AI systems could learn in a targeted way how to size you up from your social media footprint and then create exactly the right ad that gets you remote controlled into voting for the candidate that is paying them the most money? Well, at some point of efficacy, the problem is that this system is no longer being informative but manipulative. And at some point, this process ends up threatening the concept of democracy, if democracy intends to suggest that free will and free information causes people to make the best possible choice they can informationally. And that is the underlying problem that we face from AI. There's nothing stopping AI from manipulating humans at ever greater amounts and degrees of efficacy. There's no obvious stopping point, and therefore you can rapidly go from utility and efficacy to manipulation. And it isn't even clear we'll know when we've crossed any kind of line that you draw for that. I'll take that one step further and stop on the question of agency. Marcel Juste and Tom Mitchell are two outstanding professors here at Carnegie Mellon. They've been doing really interesting functional MRI research for a few years, where they take fMRI images of people looking at, using those mirrored systems inside of an MRI machine, looking at images of things like a cat or a balloon or a seashell. And then they use fMRI to, in real time, scan, of course, water molecules in the brain to understand as a proxy brain activity when you're looking at certain objects. And they'll have you even think about those objects. Now here's where this gets phenomenologically weird and scary and exciting at the same time. They've managed to make systems that you train. You give them, say, 20 or 30 concepts, everything from free will to love to seashells to watches. They have 20 or 30 people who go through thinking about all of these. And they make a deep neural net that trains on the fMRI functional images over time that capture the way the brain thinks about these across people. And then, this is the crazy part, they put somebody in the machine that's never been in the fMRI machine, somebody that the neural net never saw. And they ask that person to think about an object. And they give you a bag of 30 objects to think about one of. And they can guess with high accuracy which thing you're thinking about. Now, stop for a second and think about what that means. First of all, phenomenologically, that's crazy, because it suggests that the brain structures we have for conceptualizing objects like ping pong ball and watch are that similar. That is to say, the way my brain responds to seeing this object is that similar to the way somebody else's brain responds. So structurally similar, in fact, that a neural net, an AI system, could learn to read my mind, even if it's never been trained on me. Now, they even made a movie, a Hollywood movie, that came out about this. But the fundamental issue here is, this is an example of AI doing something that was pure fiction, reading minds, and doing that in a way that didn't even involve training on that particular person, which suggests a kind of phenomenological similarity between how we all operate as people. But that similarity means we can be exploited. Because if that similarity exists, then creating a universal remote that can read us or manipulate the way we behave is that much easier, because we're not that unique. And so that is the end of agency. Fundamentally, as a society, we need to consider the ways in which we're going to capture and understand regulatory conceptions that are going to stop us from impeding our own agency in return for what's going on here. For my last section, which I'll keep really short because I'm running out of time now, I just want to talk about the idea of identity. There's really exciting research that's done things like targeted muscle innervation, where we've created android arms that have multiple points of control that can be controlled from the pectoral group of a human being. What's powerful about that is that somebody's able to control multiple degrees of freedom. They can break an egg, they can cook an omelet, they can shake a hand. And that, I think, is a very powerful aspect of how AI will conjoin with humanity to give us greater powers. But what I want to put out is that what's exciting and what's powerful for our future as a civilization is that when people do that and they have that prosthetic arm that's got complete control, thanks to them and a microprocessor together collaborating, after a very short period of time, they feel that that is an extension of their own body. And so I believe we face a prospect of AI affordances, when used well, when designed properly, changing our sense of identity, changing our sense of who we are, not because of that iPhone that we use too much, but because they become physically a part of our extensive sense of self and the affordances that we have. So I leave you with that silver lining. I wish you well in your conference. Good day.